All right, okay. Thank you very much for that kind introduction, this opportunity to be here, of course. I'm looking forward to our short time together. I was told I have till 7 o'clock because I understand you're all geoscientists and working with Aboriginal peoples might be a little bit outside of the scope of what you normally do. So anyways, we've got some great tips for you here in terms of working with Aboriginal peoples. We've compiled them over the years and years and years of helping people work with Aboriginal peoples. So I hope you'll find some of them humorous. They're actually based on this book, Working Effectively with Aboriginal Peoples. I brought a copy. It's got a little bit of a Twitter contest for you, for those of you that do social media. So all we ask is that you do a quick follow for us. And at some point, I'm going to hold this book up. And if you send me a question at WeWap, the fourth tweet in will win a copy of this book. So just a little bit of a different flair to the presentation that way. To kick us off, though, it's 20 things you shouldn't do. I thought we'd go with that one. I have a blog. We've got about 500 posts. We've got free ebooks, which I'll share some resources with you at the end of the presentation. And out of all of the ebooks that all of the people, we get 25,000 visitors a month to our website. This is by far the most popular topic. People want to know the most about what not to do. That's our highest. It just 4-to-1 outstrips the other free ebooks that we have, 23 things to what not say or do. So that's why we've gone with this one anyways. Don't use colloquialisms when you're working with Aboriginal peoples. Carlos, I'm low man on the totem pole back at Interjects. I can't really give you an answer here right now. You definitely, those are what I call add an hour to the meeting comments, and they're not usually the kind of hour you want to have, and so I tell you to steer clear of that one. Yeah, you know what? That sounds really important. We should, Dave, we should get together and have a powwow to talk about that. That would be another add an hour to the meeting comments. So we actually give you a little bit of a list here. Indian giver, circle the wagons, low man on the totem pole, rain dance. One of the local meteorologists got in trouble for saying rain dance and actually got into a whole bunch of trouble. So too many chiefs, not enough Indians, powwow, Indian summer, Indian time. Those are just some of the common ones. You're off the reservation on this one, Bob. There's just lots of them. They could be quite popular. I would just encourage you to not use them. It'll make you more effective and not get you into the really distracting conversations. And I would tell you, you actually don't have to do what I'm telling you to do here. This is really just the suffering is optional approach. That's what I like to call it. So don't use too many technical terms in your communications. They honestly, it would be tough for them to follow along. Hi, I'm here to talk to you. I'm from the government. I'm here to talk to you about ungulates and then dromatous species. Sounds pretty good. Why don't you just say, I'm here to talk to you about fish and wildlife and the impact of water flow on those. So we definitely try to get people to really think about their communications with the people that they're working with, and you'll have really good people who'll be able to follow all of the scientific jargon. You'll also have people that are going to need a little bit of help. I tell people about grade 8. We're writing and verbally communicating about grade 8, and that just lets you capture a wider audience when you're there working in the community. So too many technical terms, though, we'll just zone them out. Sometimes they can totally interpret it badly, too. They're talking really fancy. They talk code the whole time. I don't even know why we wasted our hour of meeting time with these folks. And so we definitely would want to worry about that. Don't tell the community you're there to speak to them as stakeholders. Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm here to talk to you because you're one of the stakeholders on our list. Stakeholder is one of those terms that would really catch them off guard. They don't really consider themselves stakeholders. In fact, their worldview, the lands that they live on was given to them by the Creator. It's theirs to use, to protect, to benefit from. They also have constitutionally protected rights that puts them into a whole different category than all of the other people that you'll work with. And so they would get deeply upset if you call them stakeholders. I think one person on the council is going to have to come after you for calling them a stakeholder. Hey, Bob, don't call us a stakeholder. We're not, we have constitutionally protected rights, and if we don't like what you're going to do, we can tie your stuff up in legal wranglings for 3 to 5 years. And the Rod and Gun Club can't do that, and the Snowmobile Club, and so that would be the difference between them and a stakeholder. So I just tell people, get rid of the stakeholder, and you should be able to avoid that. Timelines, Bob, I really need an answer in 15 days. Just building on that last story. If you give them a letter that says you need a response in 15 days, it's like physics. There's an equal and opposite reaction. And I tell you, the opposite reaction is the lawyer letter from their lawyer. Hey, our client can't talk to you in 15 days. This is an adequate consultation, and you get a really nasty letter in exchange for. So I'm always telling people, you got to throttle off on the timelines. They're your timelines, not theirs. They've got, in some cases, Treaty 8 territory, 12, 13, 1,400 referrals from government. So anytime you go in with tight timelines, it just doesn't help you in terms of your work with people and communities. And don't tell the community you have to treat them equally. Oh, I can't do that for you, Chief. I got to treat you just like everybody else. That equality in their interpretation means that they're having to give up who they are, and that they're not prepared to give up being Gwawénach or Tsilhqot'in or whoever it is that they happen to be as peoples. And so to say that they need to be equal, that's really what you're saying to them. And another good bench clearing brawl sort of comment to make when you're just at the meeting trying to just talk about the stuff that you want to talk about. Don't tell the community what dates. Try to work on it jointly together. Let them sort stuff out. You should try to build in some flexibility too. They can shut down the community on a death in the community or some big event, or so that's just some helpful stuff for you there. Name dropping, I just came from the Gwawénach tribe, and I was talking to that Bob Joseph guy. He's a really good friend of mine. I think you'll like me too. And they look at you and they go, talking to the Gwawénach and Bob Joseph. That's like 2 strikes now, right? You haven't even really got past the first comment, and you're already on the ropes in terms of your communication. It's okay to name drop. Don't get me wrong. There's places, but in the other ebook, which I'll share links with you to at the end of the presentation, one of the things we'd encourage you to do is a lot of research before you go. Make sure you do the research. If they belong to the same tribal council, name drop. That makes sense. As long as other research sort of shows that they're getting along, then we'll name drop it. If there's something happening in the tribal council, then I'm going to back off the name dropping. But it's not something that you just do, hoping that it'll help you. It just came from those guys, and they really, really like me. That can get you into actually a lot of trouble. So just to share that with you. Don't tell them that you prefer a municipal style of government as opposed to traditional leadership. There's some good conversations, and I think the relationships will get there as you start to work with Aboriginal people. They're very relationship focused, but it's more of a don't get too comfortable too soon sort of thing. Wait till you really build up some relationship before you start asking this kind of stuff. And if you're really concerned, you can always just go to our blog. We got lots of posts, and I'll do brain pick phone calls and that kind of stuff. But I've seen really good meetings go really bad at the end because somebody just got curious or shared an idea that they thought would work. And the big problem, I think, with that too is for about 130 years, they've had a lot of help from the government, and it was always what you people should do. And so we're definitely trying to protect ourselves from that sort of coming across that way. Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. I mean, that's just, you're going to lose the meeting pretty much on those comments alone. And the chief and council, there's just so many sort of variations and permutations to just this one point alone. There could be traditional leaders, matriarchs. There could be other institutions, the Council of the Haida Nations plus Skidegud and Masset. So I think sometimes people tend to think, I just talked to the chief, he's a good friend of mine, he says everything's okay. We went to a Calgary Flames game last night, and they think they're doing good. And I just say, we've seen enough of that where they haven't done good, and so we're always trying to encourage people to maybe be thinking about beyond just the one person that we're talking to. And sometimes the chief and council aren't able to. In places in northwestern BC, talking to the elected chief and council is exactly the wrong place to be talking about geoscience. It's actually the traditional leaders that you need to be in talking to. So again, some of the other things that you can do, just that research, but certainly some food for thought there. Don't go with the draft plan. So lots of times people will show up with big studies and draft plans and all kinds of things for projects. They get pretty nervous when they see that kind of stuff because they're worried that it's a done deal and they're not going to have much input. And So it's just something that you'll have to strategize a little bit. Do I bring that with me? Do I keep it in the briefcase till later in the meeting, or do I bring it and throw out copies and say, here's what we're thinking of doing. We're with this company and we want to do an independent power project. So that's the kind of stuff that you would want to be thinking about. Don't assume that the community has just a strictly male leadership structure. There's lots of matriarchal communities where, in fact, the women are the decision makers, and they're not always right at the table. Sometimes they're sitting off to the side, like on a table over there, drinking coffee, watching everything that's happening here, and you're thinking, well, I'm talking to these guys, everything's going good, it must be going good. We've seen situations where literally if the going gets tough, the clan mother decides what happens. And so we're just trying to get you to be thinking about that cultural context in a much bigger way, that maybe there are other people to talk to and to not get so focused that way. Don't expect to consult with the same community in the same way on different issues. We just came from them last month and we were talking about this, and now we're going back with maybe something that's just a little bit different. They tend to look at consultation in terms of infringement, and they think about whether it's a big infringement or a small infringement, and so that will definitely dictate how they will meet, consult, engage with us in terms of our work with communities that way. So don't confuse potluck with potlatch. First of all, it'll show that you're a real rookie. I just came from that potluck a couple of days ago, and it's actually a potlatch. At the potluck, I bring the Rice Krispie squares if you bring the chicken wings. At a potlatch, we give away songs, crests, dances, title to territory. We celebrate birth, death, puberty, marriage. We're doing all kinds of stuff in a potlatch that we wouldn't do in a potluck. So sometimes people confuse the two, and we just didn't want you to get caught off guard. Looking like a rookie, they definitely look for that kind of stuff. If you think about their world and in terms of consultation and engagement, up in northeast British Columbia, the Treaty 8 people have got to be pulling 12, 13, 1,400 referrals a year. That's 12, 13, 1,400 people that need their time like you do, possibly more if it's hydro with one of their big projects. That's one referral with 50, 60 people that need to spend lots and lots of time with them. So we just don't want to look like we really don't know what we're talking about. And we've seen people trip up on reserves and reservations. We're here to talk to you. We want to talk to you about road access across your reservation. Reservation is really a U.S. construct. In the United States, you deal with tribes on reservations. In Canada, you deal with bands on reserves. So it's another one of those poker tells. We can tell you're a rookie if you're telling us we're living on reservations. We only have reservations at hotels, airlines, restaurants, those kinds of places. So just want to try to help you out a little bit that way. Don't refer to individuals as Indians or natives. I think the terminology one, we see people really get hung up on a lot, and I'm just going to hold up the book now for those social media people. So fourth tweet wins. I'll just throw it back then. You can ask me a question. I'll track you down on the networking dinner. Or at the dinner, pardon me, and we'll make sure we answer your question and get you this copy of that book if you're the fourth tweet. Eye contact. These are oral societies. Talking and listening is actually way more important than whether you're looking me in the eye and we're having nodding of understanding. And so we don't want to make people feel creepy by trying to catch them if they don't want to look at you. You don't want to, or start reading stuff into it, right? Never looked me in the eye, didn't shake my hand, I'm not sure what I'm doing here anymore. You can have all kinds of weird thoughts, but it's just trying to take into account some of those cultural considerations. So definitely on the eye contact piece. I think I'm hitting the forward button by accident there. So I'm just going to go back a sec here. So eye contact, like say, talking, pacing of communications, trying to make sure that we dial in on the pace of communication. We live in a point-counterpoint world. I talk, you talk, I talk, you talk. Sometimes we're both talking. In oral societies, it's okay to talk, stop talking, gather thoughts, start talking again, stop talking, gather thoughts, and they can do that for quite some time. I've seen it go on in the first interaction for 40 minutes, and if you're coming from sort of corporate or government Canada, that's 40 minutes of the first hour meeting. That's just, and you still haven't really even started the meeting. You'll have all kinds of frustration and that kind of stuff. So anyways, the eye contact piece, definitely not as important as talking and listening and some of the pacing of communication stuff that you can take. Overdress, especially if you're in doing exploration, you haven't really got anything done yet, and you show up with a really nice shirt and tie and suit, and then you tell them you don't have any money to do capacity building or capacity funding or any of that other stuff, but you're dressed really nice, and you showed up in the budget rent-a-car Cadillac Escalade upgrade because they thought you were so great at the counter check-in that they wanted to give you an upgrade. And so those are all, you're always communicating verbally and non-verbally, so we're definitely trying to catch people on the dressing really well. They can totally make fun of you if you got a nice shirt and tie and it's a fly-in community or a really long drive on dusty, logging or mining road. They'll, and you show up with a shirt and tie, they definitely will make some fun of you. I think that's good if they're making fun of you. They're just trying to tell you to maybe dress for the weather and not, you don't have to show up the way you have. Like I say, it sends some of the non-verbal messages that you might not want to send out to folks. Don't feel that you must answer the silent periods. I think that's a tough one for us. Again, we live in that point-counterpoint society. There can be quite long periods of silence where people just they're thinking about what you've said, they're trying to process it, and I see people get really uncomfortable with that and feel like they should keep talking and keep presenting, and it's not helping you. It's just going to confuse things and make it much worse. So we're always trying to tell people, try not to, don't feel that you've got to fill those silent periods with lots of chatter and clatter. In fact, in your first interactions, I'll ask people to just sit back and wait for a whole bunch of time. Count backwards from 7 in your head just to make sure that they're finished speaking. That's probably the real key piece there. And so there you go, a little bit about the silent periods for you. We've got some, you can get a copy of this off of the website, I think, after the conference. So there's some ways that you can contact us. The terminology piece, if you really want help with terminology, you can go download a guide to terminology on the website here. Just so you know, the real practical advice on terminology. But people always say, Bob, is it First Nations? Is it Indian band tribe? What do we call them exactly? And I always just tell people, always go with what they're calling themselves, and you won't get into any trouble. Some communities or some people are still proud to be Indians. Hi, I'm Bob, and I'm such and such an Indian, and that personal relationship, feel comfortable using that terminology. But if you don't know if they're comfortable, then I would be really worried about it. You can go to somebody, oh, are you an Indian? Hey, don't call me that. I'm called that because Christopher Columbus was lost. He was blown off course, and then Canada tried to assimilate us, and they'll have a whole painful story about why they're First Nations or nations and not Indian. So the real easy way to find out the best terminology, I always tell people, is just call the band office after hours, listen to the recorded message, and that's your terminology piece. It's pretty quick, easy tip for you that way. It takes, star 67, so they don't see it coming from Interjex or Geoscience BC, any of those other outfits. And then also pronunciations with that. So not only do you get you've reached the Simp First Nation, you can listen to how they're pronouncing Simp. Can you even turn on your recording device so you can listen to it on the drive up or the plane, any of that kind of stuff on the way. All of that stuff helps. But people say, Bob, some of those communities are pretty hard to pronounce. Do I get credit for trying? No, you don't get credit for trying. It's demerits, actually, for trying and then bombing loops. They'll want you to say it the way they do. So a couple of things that you can get off that quick call. Always go with what they're calling themselves, though. And if you don't know what they're calling themselves, then you're going to go generic. Communities, just great to be talking to your community, Dave. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us. I've got a report. I can share it with you if you want. It's in my bag here, but just here to talk to you about this kind of stuff. So a little bit of approach. 23 tips on what not to say or do, so you can go download that. Like I say, I think the PDF will be on the Geoscience BC website, and then the companion piece to that, 27 things to do. So some good sort of practical tips for you in terms of working with communities. How much time do we have left? I haven't got my 5-minute hook yet. 2 minutes, so I got time for a couple of questions if people have any. One question? Yes, please.
Yes, I worked with a couple of guys, a young guy, and he was going to fund a potlatch.
Yep.
It was a naming potlatch. How does that fit into what your description?
So we have naming potlatches. The names are significant. They're like titles, king, queen. They, with them come properties, territory, fishing sites, clam beds. And I should note, I can only talk to you about Kwakwakiwak potlatches. So we transfer names routinely in potlatches, and the names literally have ownership of masks and dances and songs, and so they're quite important ceremonies that way. They can signal to the people that this is the next in line. So I've got a traditional name, Aksamnakwala, and it literally means returning chief. And so that was the name my dad gave me in a potlatch way back in 1982. So the ceremony was to give me the official name, but also to let people know that I'd be taking over for him because he's a hereditary chief in his own right. And I'll tell you, in 1982, I really flinched. He said, you know, you should go to school, get a good education. You need to make lots of money so you can give it all away, because at potlatches, we give away a lot of money. It was a little bit tough for me at that age. I won't tell you how old I was then, but at that age and I can remember saying, no way, man, I'm going to go make it and keep it for myself. That was my introduction to the naming. So the names are quite important. There's lots of different kinds of names. Birth, death, puberty, marriage, peace treaties between tribes, so lots of things can happen in there. But really, if you were to try to break it down, it's the governance of our people happens in a potlatch. So I think I see a hook. No hook, or do we have time for one more? Or all right.